The highway stretched ahead like a sentence I couldn't finish. For I'd never felt this long before, though I'd driven it dozens of times over the years. My hands gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary, knuckles pale against the black leather. The phone sat in the cup holder, screen dark, mocking me with its silence. 3 days. Vivian never went 3 days without returning a call. I glanced at the phone again, knowing I'd see nothing new, but checking anyway. Same unanswered texts, same voicemails delivered into the void. The last one I'd left that morning sounded desperate, even to my own ears. Viv, I'm worried. Just let me know you're okay. Call me back, please. The surprise visit had seemed like a good idea yesterday. Drive to Orlando. Show up with flowers. Take Vivian and Della out for lunch somewhere nice. Make a day of it. But somewhere around mile marker 68, the surprise started feeling less like a gift and more like an emergency response. Exit signs counted down the distance. 40 m to Orlando, 35:30. My mind kept circling back to the months before Vivian left for this visit. Della's phone calls had changed, not in frequency. She'd always been good about checking in, but in content. Every conversation eventually steered toward money. The roof needed repairs. Curtis's contracting work had slowed down. Could we help with the mortgage this month? And then more recently, questions that left a sour taste. Dad, have you and Mom thought about updating your will? You know, with property values changing and everything. I'd mentioned it to Vivian after that particular call. She was folding laundry in our bedroom, her movements unhurried and precise. She's our daughter, Otis, she'd said without looking up. She's just going through a rough patch. We went through rough patches, too. Remember? I remembered, but something about Della's tone felt different. Calculated, maybe. Or maybe I was just getting paranoid in my old age, seeing shadows where there was only ordinary family struggle. The exit for Orlando appeared. I merged right, following the ramp into suburban sprawl. Strip malls and chain restaurants gave way to residential streets lined with identical two-story homes. Della's neighborhood looked the same as always. Tidy lawns, basketball hoops in driveways, minivans parked at careful angles. Her house stood at the end of a cul-de-sac. The lawn had been mowed recently, leaving perfect parallel stripes in the grass. No newspapers cluttered the driveway. Nothing seemed disturbed or wrong. I pulled up to the curb and killed the engine. For a moment, I just sat there. Maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe Vivian had dropped her phone in Della's pool, or left it in a restaurant, or simply gotten caught up in mother-daughter time and forgotten to charge it. Simple explanations existed. They had to. I got out and walked to the front door. The concrete path felt solid under my shoes. Normal. I reached for the doorbell and pressed it, hearing the chime echo inside the house. Waited, counted to 30, pressed it again. Nothing. I tried the door handle. Locked. I cupped my hands against the front window and peered through the glass. The living room looked empty. Furniture arranged exactly as I remembered from our last visit at Christmas. No lights on, no movement. I pulled out my phone and dialed Della's number. It rang 4 times, then dropped a voicemail, her cheerful recorded voice. Hey, this is Della. Can't get to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll call you back super soon. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I tried Curtis. Same result, straight to voicemail after several rings. His message was shorter, more businesslike. Curtis Richards. Leave your name and number. The unease that had been building since Tampa crystallized into something sharper. Where were they? Della knew I might visit. I'd mentioned it vaguely during our last conversation. She always answered her phone. Always. Excuse me. Wait. I turned. A man was hurrying across the lawn from the house next door, moving with purpose. Mid-40s, thinning hair, dressed in a polo shirt and khakis. His expression carried urgency that didn't match the quiet suburban afternoon. Are you family? Are you Vivian's husband? The question stopped me cold. How did this stranger know Vivian's name? He reached me and extended his hand, though the gesture seemed automatic, something he did while his mind worked on more important matters. I'm Robert Delaney. I live next door. He pointed at the house he'd emerged from. Listen, I need to tell you something. About a week ago, something happened here. He glanced back at Della's house, then at me, his jaw working as he chose his words. There were screams, he said finally, late at night. A woman's voice. My chest tightened. Robert didn't wait for me to ask questions. The words came out in a rush, like he'd been holding them in too long. It was around midnight, maybe a little after, a week ago, June 8th, I remember, because it was the night before my daughter's birthday. I heard screaming from this house. He gestured at Della's front windows. Not just yelling, screaming, a woman begging someone to call an ambulance, saying she needed help. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, subtle but unmistakable. I got up, went to my front window, Robert continued. Della and Curtis came outside right there on the lawn. They were yelling back at the house, saying everything was fine, just a nightmare. No emergency. But that screaming. He shook his head. That wasn't a nightmare. I've heard nightmares wake people up. This was terror. What did you do? The question came out hoarse. I called emergency services anyway. Told them someone needed help at this address. Della and Curtis saw me on my phone through the window and started waving at me to stop, but I'd already made the call. He crossed his arms, defensive now, as if he expected me to criticize the decision. The paramedics arrived maybe 10 minutes later. They went inside with Della and Curtis. When they came back out, they had a woman on a stretcher. She could barely lift her head. It was Vivian. The world narrowed to Robert's face, his mouth forming words that couldn't possibly be real. She was barely conscious, he said. The paramedics were moving fast, checking her vitals, asking delicate questions. Your daughter and her husband just stood there watching. Didn't get in the ambulance. Didn't even follow it to the hospital. They went back inside, and the next morning both their cars were gone. Haven't seen them since. My hands were shaking. I looked down at them, surprised by the tremor. Then back at Robert. Which hospital? I don't know. I assumed, he faltered. I assumed family would handle it. That someone would contact you. I pulled out my phone. Dialed Della again. Voicemail. Curtis. Voicemail. Then I called emergency services, forcing my voice steady as I identified myself, and asked about ambulance calls to this address 1 week ago. The dispatcher put me on hold. Music played incongruously cheerful. Robert stood watching me. Emergency services. How can I help you? I'm calling about an ambulance dispatched to 847 Meadowbrook Lane on June 8th, I said. The patient was my wife, Vivian Morgan. I need to know which hospital she was taken to. The dispatcher provided the information. Orlando Regional Medical Center, ORMC. The call came in at 12:43 a.m. I immediately dialed the hospital. After several transfers, an ICU nurse confirmed. Vivian Morgan. Yes, she was admitted June 8th. Serious condition, but stable as of yesterday. What happened to her? I can't provide details over the phone, sir. You'll need to come in person. Are you family? I'm her husband. 4th floor ICU. Ask for the charge nurse when you arrive. I lowered the phone. I'm calling the police. I told Robert. This isn't right. He nodded, agreeing to give a statement. I dialed the Orlando Police Department, reported a possible crime, gave the address, and explained Robert's witness account. An officer said someone would meet me at the hospital. At ORMC. Detective Lisa Thornton, Orlando PD. Met me near the nurse's station. Your wife suffered severe poisoning, Mr. Morgan. Combination of sedatives and cardiac medication. The dose was potentially lethal. She's been unconscious for most of the week. My daughter and son-in-law were with her. I said slowly. The neighbor heard her screaming for help. They told him it was nothing. Then they disappeared. Does that sound like an accident to you, detective? Room 412. Go see your wife. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. I entered the dim ICU room. Vivian lay connected to machines. I took her hand. I'm here now, I said quietly. When you wake up, you'll tell me what they did. And I promise you, I'll make sure they answer for every second of this. The shocked father evaporated. The prosecutor I had been for 30 years took his place. Around 5 a.m., Vivian's fingers twitched. Her eyelids fluttered. She eventually focused on my face. Otis. The doctor confirmed she was stable enough to talk. Detective Thornton returned with a recording device. Vivian described the night of June 8th. Della had made dinner, pasta with vegetables. About an hour later, she felt dizziness, nausea, and her heart raced. I asked Della to call an ambulance. She said no. Said it was just food poisoning, that I'd feel better if I lay down. But it got worse. I begged her. She just looked at Curtis. And he stood in front of the door. Wouldn't let me leave the room. I screamed for help. Then everything went dark. Detective Thornton stopped the recording. The toxicology shows levels of zolpidem and digoxin that would kill most people your age, Mrs. Morgan. This wasn't accidental. Zolpidem is a sleeping medication. Digoxin is a cardiac medication. Vivian confirmed seeing pill bottles in their bathroom. Curtis mentioned anxiety and trouble sleeping. I need to conduct interviews, Thornton said. Della Richards and Curtis Richards just returned to their Orlando home. Apparently, they took a trip. I'm coming with you, I said, standing. Mr. Morgan, this is official police business. Given your relationship to the victim and the suspects. They're not suspects. They're criminals who tried to murder my wife. Which is exactly why you can't be present during questioning. I understood Detective Thornton's caution. Untainted evidence was critical. I sat back down. Thornton returned late afternoon. Della and Curtis admitted Vivian was sick, but claimed she took the pills herself, sedatives for sleep due to stress about finances. They claimed they were about to call an ambulance when the neighbor interfered. They left for the Bahamas the next day because the trip was pre-planned, and they thought Vivian was stable. That's a lie, Vivian insisted. Thornton acknowledged their story was coordinated, rehearsed, and legally, it was currently their word against Vivian's. Knowing the criminal process would be slow and uncertain, I called Marcus Webb, a private investigator I'd worked with previously. Marcus's report, compiled in 2 days, was grim. Financial ruin. Della had made 47 calls to creditors in the past 3 months. Accounts were 60-plus days past due. Curtis's debt, $85,000 in credit card debt, and $120,000 in gambling losses. Foreclosure. Their mortgage was 2 months overdue. Foreclosure proceedings started last week. Premeditation. Della called my estate attorney 4 weeks before the poisoning asking about probate timelines and inheritance for adult children. Motive was clear. Financial desperation plus opportunity equals motive. I met with James Walker, my civil litigation attorney. Walker advised, criminal court requires proof beyond reasonable doubt, but civil court preponderance of evidence, 51%. We can prove this on civil grounds even if criminal charges fail, and we can make their lives very uncomfortable in the process. His suggestion, a wrongful injury lawsuit to freeze their assets during discovery, forcing them to answer under oath and exposing their financial motive to criminal investigators. I authorized the aggressive civil action. I also immediately went to my estate attorney, Gerald Simmons, and revised my will. Della was removed completely. Everything goes to Vivian, then to charity, with a no-contest clause to prevent her from challenging the will. That evening, I showed the report to Vivian. She struggled with the betrayal. She actually planned it. I explained Walker's strategy. Vivian nodded once. Do it. On Friday morning, I called Della's number, keeping my tone neutral. Your mother needs family right now. I think we should talk. All of us together face to face. Can you and Curtis come to Tampa this weekend? Della, calculating, replied. Of course. We want to help however we can. Saturday work. Saturday's perfect. Come around noon. After hanging up, I signed the authorization form for Walker's lawsuit. Monday morning, Della and Curtis would be served with papers. I wanted to see their faces when they thought they'd gotten away with it. The civil complaint sat on my desk, 38 pages of allegations and precisely calculated damages. $2 million for attempted murder, emotional distress, and medical expenses. I confirmed with James Walker. File it. The call came 3 hours later. Not from Walker, but from Della. I let it ring twice. Yes, $2 million. Her scream was sharp. Dad, have you lost your mind? This is insane. It was an accident. Mom took those pills herself. You're ruining our lives over a misunderstanding. I let her finish. You had a choice that night, Della. When your mother was screaming for help, begging you to call an ambulance. You made a choice. You chose to let her suffer. Now you'll answer for that choice in court. Her fury flared. You're destroying my life over nothing. We're your family. Family doesn't let family die for inheritance money. I ended the call. 20 minutes later, Curtis called, attempting a careful, modulated negotiation. Otis, listen. I know this looks bad, but we can work this out, right? What if there's a way to make this go away? You're offering me money with what? The $85,000 you owe on credit cards? The $120,000 in gambling debts? Or were you planning to use the inheritance you thought you'd get when Vivian died? His voice was stripped bare. What are you talking about? There's no deal, Curtis. See you in court. Hang up. Detective Thornton called that afternoon. We executed the search warrant this morning. Found an empty prescription bottle of zolpidem, sleeping pills, prescribed to Curtis. Found Curtis's laptop browser history from 3 weeks prior. Searches for digoxin overdose symptoms and lethal sleeping pill dose. That's premeditation, Mr. Morgan. The DA is preparing arrest warrants. Attempted murder first degree for both of them, plus conspiracy and obstruction. The second call came at 7 p.m. They're in custody. Vivian, holding my hand, whispered, Is it wrong that I feel relieved? I squeezed her hand. No, it means justice is working. The judge set bail at $250,000 each. They posted bail quickly, pledging their house as collateral. They retained Michael Brennan, a high-profile criminal attorney. Brennan's strategy was immediate media manipulation. The Tampa Tribune ran the story. Father sues daughter for $2 million after alleged poisoning. Defense claims tragic accident. The article featured a photo of a seemingly distressed Della. On Sunday, a follow-up interview was published. Della and Curtis claimed Vivian took the pills herself, stressed about finances. Brennan positioned them as victims of my vindictive lawsuit fueled by paranoia. Vivian was deeply hurt. They watched me beg for help and did nothing. Then why does reading this make me feel like we're the ones who did something wrong? Because that was exactly what Brennan wanted. Shape the narrative before trial. Make the jury pool question whether attempted murder was really just panic and poor judgment. Classic defense strategy. The media campaign was working. Friends and former colleagues called, expressing doubt veiled in concern. Judge Richard Martinez questioned if emotions were running high. Victim advocate Carol Henderson suggested Vivian's memory might be flawed. Walker called Monday morning. Brennan filed a countersuit, defamation against Vivian and me for $500,000. It's harassment litigation meant to create leverage, make you back down. Tuesday afternoon, Thomas Kirby, my book club friend, awkwardly approached me at the grocery store, suggesting mediation. My daughter tried to kill my wife for inheritance money. That's not a misunderstanding. I told him firmly. That evening, Vivian confronted my doubts. I begged our daughter for help while I was dying, and she refused. That's not complicated. That's not a misunderstanding. That's attempted murder. Don't let them make you forget what actually happened. Her certainty restored my resolve. Wednesday morning, Detective Thornton called. Curtis cracked. During a follow-up interview, he broke, saying, It was my idea to solve our financial problems, okay? But Della agreed. She knew what we were doing. The confession was on tape. Walker confirmed the fracture. Della screamed at Curtis in the conference room, calling him weak. Curtis screamed back that she wanted the money and helped plan everything. Two defendants blaming each other is a prosecutor's dream. The DA's office extended an offer to Curtis. Reduced charges, conspiracy instead of attempted murder. 8 to 10 years instead of 15 to 20. In exchange for full testimony against Della. Curtis is the weak point, I noted. His fear and addiction would make him susceptible. I remembered him blocking the door while Vivian begged. Make the offer, I told Walker. The offer reached Curtis, who asked for 48 hours to decide. Della immediately retained a separate attorney, Patricia Vance, citing a conflict of interest. Vance filed a motion suggesting Curtis was the primary actor and Della was coerced or manipulated. She's willing to destroy Curtis completely to save herself, Walker observed. I sat with Vivian and explained the developments. Curtis's slip, the plea offer, and Della's ruthless counter-strategy. If Curtis testifies against Della, will she definitely be convicted? Vivian asked. Not definitely, but probably. His testimony combined with the laptop evidence, the prescriptions, your account. It builds a very strong case. Then I hope he takes the deal. Not because I want Curtis to suffer less, but because I want to be absolutely certain Della is held accountable. My phone rang late that night. Walker's voice was tight with controlled excitement. Curtis's attorney just called. He's taking the deal. Full testimony, complete cooperation, every detail. He's giving us Della on a silver platter. The asset freeze motion hearing took place Wednesday afternoon. Walker presented the overwhelming evidence. $250,000 in debts, foreclosure initiated. Della's call to the estate attorney. Della's attorney argued the freeze would guarantee foreclosure, but Walker pointed out they had already stopped paying. Judge Martinez granted the motion. They're financially paralyzed, Walker told me. Can't sell, can't borrow, can't access savings. Everything they have is frozen until the civil case resolves. Curtis's deposition on Friday yielded 47 pages of testimony. He detailed researching the drugs, forging the prescription, mixing the medication into Vivian's pasta sauce, and Della's explicit agreement that it was the only solution to their debts. She was a co-conspirator, I concluded. Based on this, Detective Thornton called. The DA filed additional charges against Della, conspiracy to commit murder and accessory after the fact. An arrest warrant was issued, and Della was taken into custody Saturday morning. Bail was denied. On Sunday, an email arrived from Patricia Vance, Della's new attorney, suggesting a confidential settlement discussion. Della was willing to plead to reckless endangerment if we dropped the $2 million civil lawsuit. I stared at the screen for 30 seconds. Then I deleted the email. Vivian saw me. Don't let her pretend this can be negotiated away. She tried to kill me for money. That's not something you compromise on. Monday morning, I forwarded a screenshot of the deleted email to Walker. No deals, no compromise. We proceed to trial on all charges. The civil lawsuit continued. Walker filed motions for joint and several liability, making Curtis responsible for the full $2 million civil judgment. That same day, the bank accelerated foreclosure proceedings on Della and Curtis's house. With payments missed and assets frozen, the bank issued a notice to vacate. They're losing everything, Marcus Webb reported. House savings. The civil judgment will attach to anything that's left. They gambled everything and lost, I said. Curtis's formal plea agreement was signed on July 2nd. He formally allocated in court, admitting under oath to conspiracy to commit attempted murder and accepting 8 years in prison. Della's preliminary hearing was scheduled for July 10th. On Wednesday night, July 4th, I sat with Vivian watching fireworks. Are you ready for next week? She asked. Yes, I said. I'm ready. The story broke wide on July 6th. The local Tampa station led with it. Daughter and son-in-law charged in poisoning plot. Inheritance motive alleged. The media coverage was now evidence-based. The media coverage on July 6th was now decisive. Courthouse footage, details of the forged prescriptions and laptop searches, and the estimated $1.5 million inheritance calculation, which Walker corrected to $2 million. The friends who had questioned me now called to apologize. Marcus Webb provided updates. Della was fired by a real estate agency. Curtis was fired by the dealership. Both were socially isolated. Curtis's parents released a formal statement disavowing him. 8 days after her arrest, Della mailed me a handwritten letter. I opened it with Vivian. The 3 pages were a mix of confession, excuses, the debts, Curtis's gambling, and a desperate plea. I never meant for Mom to actually die. Please, isn't there a way to fix this? Can't we be a family again? I wrote a 1-page response by hand. Della, you had a choice that night. You chose to watch your mother die rather than call for help. You chose money over her life. These were your decisions made with clear intent. As the evidence shows, there's no fixing this. There's no family to return to. I sent it via Walker's office, ensuring no direct contact. Civil trial, July 15th. Walker secured the final $2 million judgment. The point isn't the money, I said. It's the public record. Official acknowledgement of what they did and what they owe. Follows them forever. Della's arraignment, July 10th. Della pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree and attempted murder in the first degree. Trial set for September 12th. Walker believed Della would change her plea once she reviewed Curtis's testimony. He was right. On July 31st, Della accepted a plea agreement, guilty to attempted murder in the second degree, 15 years minimum, eligible for parole after 12. Vivian and I sat in the second row for the sentencing. Judge Harrison addressed Della. Miss Richards, you planned and executed an attempt to murder your own mother for financial gain. The only reason your mother is alive today is because a neighbor had the decency and courage you lacked. Della, remanded for 15 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 12. Curtis, sentenced to 8 years, despite cooperation. The judge noted he administered the poison. Della was escorted out. She didn't look back. The civil trial on August 15th was almost anticlimactic. With the criminal guilty pleas, the $1.5 million civil judgment we requested was a formality. Collecting it, however, was impossible. Della and Curtis had filed bankruptcy. Their house was foreclosed. We'll never see a dollar of it, Walker admitted. But it's on record. The judgment doesn't expire. That night, Vivian and I ate dinner. Do you regret any of it? She asked. The lawsuits, the prosecution, cutting her off completely. No. I protected you. I made sure they faced consequences. I'd make every choice again. Even knowing she's your daughter? Especially knowing that she used family as cover for attempted murder. That makes it worse, not better. Vivian felt the same. Just relief that it's finished. We stood at our living room window. We had survived betrayal and attempted murder. We had ensured accountability, built protections, and created consequences. The inheritance Della tried to kill for would never touch her hands. Our wills now directed everything to charity. Was it worth it? Vivian asked quietly. Everything we lost. We didn't lose everything, I said. We lost a daughter who was willing to kill you. That's not a loss. That's removal of a threat. As August turned to September, life resumed. Vivian continued physical therapy. I returned to consulting. Della and Curtis became footnotes. Sometimes I thought about the daughter I'd raised, the one who was gone. What remained was a woman in prison serving 15 years for attempted murder. One evening in mid-September, Vivian asked, "Do you think about her?" Sometimes, I admitted. Most I think about what might have happened if Robert hadn't called for help. If you died that night, and they'd gotten away with it. But that didn't happen. No, because we fought back. Because we refused to let them rewrite the story. Vivian turned to face me. Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for not letting family loyalty override the truth. You're my family. You're who I protect. We stood together in the gathering darkness, survivors. The wound would never fully heal, but we had ensured the people who caused it paid the appropriate price. That was enough.